Hear, O Israel, the great I am is the only power for you. The great I am is one. Speak peace on the seventh day of rest. Rise, O Israel. Today's discussion will be, let's just make this Blackout video dedicated to George Floyd and the Negro Experiment or Negro Experience in this beast system you call the United States. Now, our reference will be the book of Revelations, chapter 18, verses 11 through 15. Let's just make it the whole chapter of Revelations, chapter 18. Now, decades ago, NBC News conducted a Hollywood style of entertainment. They conducted a Hollywood style entertainment interview with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And in this interview, he is discussing what it is to be like in a burning house. What it is for the Negroes to be like in a burning house. And he was quoting James Jimmy Baldwin, a prolific writer of his time. You know, he was quoting that writer. And this burning house, again, you know, what they're talking about. And the person, the interviewer, his name was Sander Vancour. And again, this video is based upon, you know, Negroes living in a burning house, which is under the protection of the United States government system. You know, here at Indigenous Hebrew Israelite Awakening, we call it the beast system. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King said that violence is socially destructive. And there are many citizens, there's hypocrisy of the citizens and the government itself. Also calling that a white backlash because, you know, this integration system that we live in is very destructive. You have people who have their own culture already. And you have these Negroes coming in saying, hey, look, we want to live among you, but you got to change what you think about us. That's basically what this video is talking about. You know, racial inequality is what the struggle for, you know, civil rights was in the beginning. And Dr. King, he said that he's switching it from that prior struggle. They had some 9 odd years of struggle to get the civil rights bill. And after that, there was a new struggle. He called it genuine equality. And for us to look at it today, it would be a new nation. So instead of having this integration policy that they fought for, and we don't see it today, then this genuine equality would be us having our own nation. Because here today in 2020, we still see the old traits, the old culture that Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights era fought for. They fought for it, and it's still not happening. You know, and again, the main thing that actually got Dr. King in trouble is emancipation and the economics for the Negro. And you'll find yourself searching through the archives of Her Grace Coretta Scott King, and this is what she said about her husband, that, you know, out of all the speeches that he's done, it was his economic speech, his speeches on economics, that really got him killed. You know, and Dr. King goes on to say that, you know, black people are simply trying to be men. We're scarred by the system. Again, this beast system, I call it. You know, we're scarred by this system and we're only trying to be men. Integration, he says it does not mean giving up on culture, but again, you're asking, and these are my words now, saying you're asking a nation to give up their culture in order to add some people that don't look like them and don't act like them. You know, we have to participate in a culture that kills us. You have black people wearing police badges, wearing military uniforms, and they have to act like the culture that hates them. This is what's literally happening today, 2020. There are black people who have been integrated into a society that actually kills them. You know, and don't get me wrong. Again, there's no racism coming out of this message that you're hearing today. This message is to reveal to the people who are so starstruck, who are so, integrated into the society and fabric of patriotic United States, that they don't see that there is racism embedded in the foundation of this culture. They only see it for what it says of itself. You know, you can go to any courtroom and the judge, the system, they will say, okay, based upon your past as a murderer, we're going to judge you with such and such degree of, murder or whatever. But then it doesn't look at itself. It doesn't look at its own past history of murder and human trafficking and racism and lying and thievery. It doesn't look at its own past. But yet you can go to a United States court and they will look at your past and judge you based upon your past. That's how wicked this system is. That's how wicked this system is, folks. Now, at 20:03 of this video, he quotes Mr. Jimmy Baldwin, and he says, again, what advantage, and this is Jimmy Baldwin saying, what advantage is there to integrate into a burning house? This is a question. What advantage is there? You're going to go and vote for a president or some of these elected officials, and once you vote them into office, they no longer listen to you. It's obvious that you're being killed by this society. You've been asking this society, this government system, to stop killing you. And you have a man called George Floyd who was murdered on video for the whole world to see. And now they're trying to give the murderer a third-degree murder sentence. Third degree. As if it was an accident that he murdered this man. When we all seen it was intentional. That he stayed there. The people were asking him, the surrounding eyewitnesses were telling him to get off the man. And he intentionally stayed on top of this man and watched him die. We all watched him die right then and there. I'm overexerting myself. Let me calm down. It's just this social system that we live in is so wicked. You know, Dr. King said that he mentioned that white society's values should be changed. Now, you cannot integrate yourself into a society and hope and wish and pray that it changes. You can't do that. You cannot integrate into somebody's culture and tell them to change. You can't go to Japan and tell the Japanese people, hey, change your culture. You can't do that. You can't go to Australia and force people to change their culture. You can't do that. So this integration policy, this integration culture that we have here in the United States, it's wicked. You can't force people to say, hey, you need to change your culture so I can live with you. It was a mistake. And that's why we living in this burning house that Jimmy Baldwin asked us. He spoke about. What's the advantage of that? Now, the interviewer, Sander Vancour, he asked Dr. King, he asked him about the visible and invisible villains. The visible and the invisible villains. What do you think those are in an integrated society? Visible and invisible villains. This is what black people are dealing with in a society that truly hates them. In a government system that truly hates black people, there are visible and invisible villains. They knew that back then. How come you don't know that now? How come you don't know that who you vote for, they're not going to listen to you after they get into office? They're going to listen to the World Council of Churches. They're going to listen to the International Monetary Fund. They're going to listen to, special interest groups. As soon as they get into office, they get your vote. They're no longer going to listen to you. But yet they want you to register your property. They want you to go get a license. They want you to pay taxes. They want you to do all these things. They not only ask you, but they force you to do all these things, and they no longer listen to what you have to say as a quote unquote citizen of the United States, citizen of a state, or a local member of the society. Dr. King mentions 3 evils of the United States at 21:07 minutes of this video. I'll attach this video to the comment or to the block section below. 3 evils. He says the first is racism. Off the bat. Racism. The color code. The color of law. That's number 1, racism. Number 2, the economic exploitation of poor people. And you already know black people fall under that category. And number 3, militarism. Now, this one may have thrown you off guard. This is what Dr. King said. What was the 3 evils of the United States? Militarism. Whether it be, police brutality, the force of police in the United States. But guess what? Once police are neglected and the citizens are today actively killing police officers because they are not listening to the people, that's when the military comes in. And do you know, folks, when the police are no longer paid attention to, the military comes in and they say, we're going to keep our culture. Do you got that, folks? Do you understand what you have just heard? When the police can no longer contain you, when you are out there rioting and causing chaos, that's when the government brings in either the National Guard or activates the full military to come into your community and say, we are going to keep our culture. Please understand that this is what's happening. And if this has happened from day one, our ancestors, the first people who came over here as slaves, revolted. The first people. And if you look at all the history of riots and revolts, you're going to see that every year there has been a riot and revolt from black people trying to simply be men in a culture that don't care 2 cents of their existence. in a government system that systematically destroys them at every chance it gets. In this same video, Dr. King said, he mentions police brutality in Chicago. He mentions it. And he also confesses that his dream turned into a nightmare. Now, I want to touch on the book of Revelation, and this is a revealing factor, folks. This is a revealing prophecy about this beast system called United States. You know, in the book of Revelations, chapter 18, this is a chapter about a merchant city, which all the world made merchandise of everything, including slaves and the souls of men. That means they sold slaves, black people, and the very souls, your very thought process has been sold away. Your very inner man has been sold. You have been given over to what? Atheism, Darwinism, fake space, or whatever it is that they have conjured up to get you to think other than what God has said in a book that has prophesied of them. This is what this chapter is talking about. And you can't think that it's the over 1,500 years of Arabic slavery, the Arabic slave trade, which those slaves that they sold off, they remembered who they were when they were sold into captivity. But there's one group of people on earth who does not remember who they were. So it can't be the Arabic slave trade that this Revelation chapter 18 is talking about. It can't be those slaves. This is a merchandise city who will make foreign merchants rich. Now, there's no city on the planet, there's no culture on the planet, there's no ancient culture on the planet that made foreign governments rich. We have traded our automobile, our trains, we have traded every contraption, every invention on this earth has been traded out and given into the hands of foreign nations. And I'm saying this beast system has done that. They have traded out every invention that was made, even off the backs of slaves. And they have traded it off and made every government in the world rich by doing so. And this book also mentioned that ancient Babylon the Great, will not be found no longer. Now, the boys in archaeology done found ancient Babylon. We reading books on about ancient Babylon today. But we're talking about a Babylon that's not going to be found forever. This is what Revelation is talking about. Now, according to this video we've seen Dr. King speak on, we've seen that his dream was a nightmare, and we're still living that nightmare today according to this video that we've seen, and according to what has been happening to the Negro in this experience, this beast system experience. The Negro ought to be searching for its own nation, its own tribal existence, like Native Americans have. Like some people in China have. They have, even though they live in China, they have their own separate nation. Like South Africa, there's countries within a country. That's what the Negroes ought to be searching for. I am an indigenous Hebrew, a conscientious objector, and a minister of peace. Hebrew Israelite out.